Why is it that certain things live longer than certain things? Why is it that certain businesses live longer than certain businesses? Why is it that certain philosophies, certain ideas, and definitely certain religion live for thousands of years and they don't die? Why is it that some of them start and they don't live for a very long time? They die. It's either you are growing or you are dying. Anything that cuts you off from growth is in essence killing you. You have been feeding unnecessary things. Now, this is what I want to share with you today. Everything needs to feed in order to survive. Now, this is the secret why certain things live and they don't die. The secret is this: they are always fed. Anything that you feed will stay alive. Now, isn't that simple? If you feed it, it will stay alive. Anything that you want to keep alive, you have to keep feeding it. For example, if you have a business, and you want that business to stay alive, you want that business to keep bringing you money, you want that business to keep serving the community, you need to continuously feed that business. You feed it with work, you feed it with production, you feed it with all the necessary nutrients that your business require in order to survive. In the same measure, they say that the brain of human being requires a certain level of oxygen in order to keep functioning. Now, what happens when the brain does not have enough oxygen that it requires? The brain begins to die off naturally, and then it would cause a person to die ultimately. So, what I have come to realize is anything that you don't feed will naturally die. So, if you want to kill something, you don't have to devise any tool to kill it. Everything naturally dies. Everything dies naturally if we don't feed it. Let me just give you a practical example. If I have a hand and the blood circulation does not go through that hand, what happens is the life of this hand would stop. This hand would stop living, and every nutrient will begin to die off. Every tissue will begin to die off, and it will rot. And at the end of the day, it will die because it does not receive what it requires in order to live. This is as simple as that. This is a basic survival principle, if you may say, or law, if you may want to call it, of survival. Anything that you don't feed will naturally die. Now, guess what? This is what you can use to get rid of any bad habit. If what I feed would always stay alive and what I don't feed will naturally die, then if I'm a person who wants to see growth and development in my life, what is it that I should do? I would have to sit back and analyze, watch my life. Now, it's very important sometimes to watch your life, okay? You don't have to always watch other people's lives, which unfortunately is what most people do today. They watch the lives of other people so much that they don't have time to watch over their lives. They don't watch what they say. They don't watch their thought. They don't watch where they are going wrong. They don't watch the direction. And when they hit a bump, they are surprised. Do not be surprised if you are so blind and to watch your life and you hit a bump or you hit a rock or you hit a calamity. It's because you are focused on watching other people that you don't see and you don't watch your life. Now, that is the problem. Now, this is what a person has to do in most cases if you are to know what is going on, is to watch your life. Now, if you watch your life, definitely there is one part of your life that will be growing and there would be another part of your life that is not growing. You can't keep both things growing at the same time. I guess this is the wisdom behind what Allah says in the Quran. Now, He says that Allah has not placed two hearts in the chest of a person. In essence, what this means is you can't keep both positive and negative alive and feed them at the same level. You only have enough energy to feed one at a point in time. So if you analyze yourself, you look at your life, and then you come to realize that no, the negative is living, is flourishing. The negative in me is flourishing. The bad aspect of me is growing. I'm growing more lazy. I'm growing more evil. I'm growing more negative. I'm growing more scary, less confident. I'm growing, all of this negative energy is growing in me. If that is the case, it's because you are not feeding the positive side of you. What you are feeding then is your negative side. And as a principle, whatever you feed will always grow. Now, trust me, this works. If you feed it, it will grow. Now, you see, this is why it is so bad to keep a bad company. Because bad company would only assist you to feed the negative side of you. And you're wondering, why is it that always the bad things keep growing? Just take a practical example. Why is it that you are not able, for the past 12 months that you have been promising yourself to get rid of a bad habit? Maybe you want to quit smoking. Maybe you want to quit drinking. Maybe you want to quit gambling or whatever. You want to quit something. But you can't. Why? Because you still keep the company of those things. And if you have the company, they would keep feeding that, and what you feed will always stay alive. Now, you don't have to devise any tool. You don't have to have any supernatural thing in order to kill the bad habit. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is just one. Stop feeding it. Just stop feeding it. If you are able to stop feeding the dark desires, naturally it will die. Now, this is what happens if you stop feeding. Whatever you stop feeding will die. It means the initial stage of death as a result of the privation of feeding is hunger. This is the reason why when you start to kill a certain aspect of your life, it becomes very difficult to resist. Why? Because it will become hungry. You will become hungry of it. For example, if you want to fast, for example, because you want to some kind of get rid of some fat, you want to lose weight, you want to do stuff, but you are advised to fast. And fasting means you are going to deprive yourself of food. You are not going to feed yourself for a certain period of time. Now, the first thing you would notice is hunger. You will get hungry. Now, you see, hunger is the first step of death as a result of deprivation. So, if you are trying to kill a bad habit and you want to take the method of depriving that habit, stop feeding that habit would become hungry, which means you would still want to do it because you are hungry of it. And that is a sign that you have started to win, because if you deprive your bad habit, if you deprive your negative side, the feeding it requires to grow, then it will respond. And sometimes harshly, it will respond by saying to you, I'm hungry, feed me, feed me. It will always come to you saying, feed me, because I'm hungry. Now you see, the laziness would always try to ask you to feed it. If you are an addict and you're trying to deprive your addiction of the necessary feeding, you want to kill that addiction. The next moment the addiction would come yelling at you, feed me, I'm hungry. You will become hungry of that particular habit. Now, this is where you have to stay your ground, because you want to kill something and you are depriving it of the feeding, and naturally it will come to you. You will feel hungry of it. Most people, when they are feeling hungry, they can't resist. Then they'll go back to it. And that is how you can't stop feeding your bad habit, and that is how your bad habit would always dominate you. And do not forget, what you feed would always grow. And if you want to kill it, all you have to do is to stop feeding it. Now, this is an interesting thing I want to share with you. You see, you don't have a capacity. I know most people would say, oh, no worries. I am who I am. I can be bad and good at the same time. No, it doesn't happen. Now, you can't feed both opposites at the same time and have them grow at the same time. Now, that's what I had tried to explain to you. This is a principle of some sort that Allah has communicated to us. Now, if you look in the Quran, I believe it is in Surah Al-Ahzab, Allah says this, yeah? Allah has not placed two hearts in the heart of a man. Wow. Now, this is so beautiful that you have to appreciate the deep essence of what Allah is trying to communicate here. Now, listen to this. In essence, Allah says you don't have enough capacity to feed both opposites at the same time. You don't have enough capacity to be extremely good and extremely bad at the same time. You only have enough capacity to feed one aspect of your life at the same time. So if the bad is growing, it means you are feeding your good less. If the good is growing, it means you are feeding the bad less. So you can't keep lying to yourself and saying, I can be both at the same time. Now, don't get me wrong. Do not get me wrong here. What I'm saying is, all of us have certain element of negativity in them. It is dying. It is the stronger your negativity is, only speaks to how you feed your negativity. Now, this is beautiful. How you feed your negativity only shows how your negativity grows in you. Now, this is the difference between extremely good people and extremely negative people. I don't want to even use the word good and bad or good and evil. I want to use positive and negative, because at the end of the day, whether you are good or bad, it is your effect, the net effect you put out there in life, how you affect people, how that thing affects your life. That's what you should be looking at. Now, if your net positive is greater than your net negative, then you are feeding your negative. If your net negative is more than your net positive, then you are feeding your net negative. It doesn't matter. I do not care what you tell yourself. I do not care what you think about yourself. But if this is what you're doing, basically, you are feeding, because this principle is as good as life. It is as true as a fact and reality itself. What you feed grows. If I look at your life and all I see is cynicism, if I look at your life and all I see is failure, and all I see is laziness, if I look at your relationships and all I see is failed relationship upon failed relationship, then what I come to understand is either you or your partner, or in conjunction with together, you have not fed that relationship. Because take this principle, whatever you feed grows, and what you don't feed dies. So if you have a relationship and you guys are not feeding it, trust me, that relationship is going to die naturally. So many people's relationship are dying not because of what one person did or what the other did. No, it's because basically they have not fed that relationship. And guess what? If we have one person feeding that relationship, and do not forget what Allah says, that one person does not have enough capacity to feed everything at the same time. That is why a person would feed a relationship with all his heart, and if the other is not feeding it, the person ends up failing. Why? Because he is not able to sufficiently feed that relationship. Now, the food of relationships are easy and known. Now, you just have to care about the relationship. Feeding is just caring. If you have a relationship and you want to feed it, all you have to do is to care about the survival of that relationship. Show caring, okay? Discharge your responsibility, okay? Make the intention that you want this to work. Be with both foot in there, not one foot in, one foot out, as everyone does today. And they say this is an insurance. No, this is an insecurity. Show all this love. And that is how you feed a relationship, with truth, sincerity, and communication, and care and love. If you feed this relationship much, I promise you this relationship would live, because you are feeding it. But guess what happens if you stop to feed that relationship? It dies, because the basic life principle dictates that what you don't feed dies. Now, this is supposed to be simple, but not all simple things are easy. But Allah would always make things easy for those who want things to be easy for them. Learn. Find people who would help you feed it. This is why it's dangerous to keep company of people who are against your ideas. That's why it's so dangerous to keep company of people who would not help you feed your ideas, who will not help you feed your growth and your journey. I have so many people who are complaining about my husband not supporting my idea, and most marriages, most relationships die because one simply decides not to help the other one grow. And naturally, because you don't help him feed his future, feed his life, he leaves you. Because what you don't feed will die. So if you have any business idea, as I would do, I would cut off any company that will not help that idea, that business grow. It is very dangerous to keep a company of a person who would not feed your growth, who would not assist you in growth. Now, this is an interesting thing I want you to consider. Life is all about growth. It doesn't matter what you do. It's two things. It's either you are growing or you are dying. There is no middle way here. There is no middle way that you may say, I'm neutral. You can't be neutral. In a matter of life and death in life, there is no neutrality. Now you may say, oh, I'm not affiliated to this political party. I'm not affiliated to this group of people. And that is fine. In life, you can choose. You can stay in between two ideas. But the idea of life and death, you can't stay in between. It is either you're living, it's either you are growing or you are dying. You can't stop growth and stay there for the rest of your life. The moment you stop growing, I want to put it to you that you are dying. So you have to be very careful of anybody who would not contribute to your growth. Now look at the human body system, the way Allah designed it. There is always constant flow of blood, nutrients, always calling for nutrients. What happens when you stop feeding this body the nutrients it requires? I believe in a couple of days you will die. What happens if the brain stops receiving the blood from the system and it stops receiving oxygen? Slowly it will die. Now Allah has made it so imperative that the system would always have to receive its nutrients. Glucose, for example, is so necessary in the body system that even if you don't consume sugar, the body would have to manufacture glucose, a form of sugar, from its own system, because survival is very important. Growth, development is very important. That's why you have to be very careful keeping any company that will not allow you to grow. It could be a relationship, a person who has professed love to you. It could be a spouse. Yeah, it could be a friend. It could be a colleague. It could even be a businessman. It could be your boss. It could be a company. Wherever you find yourself, and there is this culture that limits your growth, that place is not worth staying, because anything that cuts you off from growth is in essence killing you, because there is no middle ground between living and dying. If you are not growing, if you are not living, you are dying. That is the way it is. So you have to feed whatever you are. You have to feed whatever you want to become in life. This is intentional. You have to make the intention that I'm going to feed my ideas. I'm going to feed my future. I'm going to feed my relationship. I'm going to feed my marriage. I'm going to feed the people I hold dear in my heart. I'm going to feed my goals. I'm going to feed my future, my ambition. You have to be intentional about this. And when you have the intention to feed them, that's when you begin to realize, oh my God, you have not been feeding them enough. And they have been calling you. They have been hungry and you have left them for dead. And you have been feeding unnecessary things. You have been feeding laziness. You have been feeding your sense of insecurity with fear and all of that. You have been feeding things that will limit you in life, and that's why you are pathetic and you don't have the courage. And for the past 12 months, you have not learned any skills. You have not taken any step because you have not been feeding what you need to feed. And you are feeding your procrastination. And what you feed will always grow. If you feed what people think about you, guess what happened? People would live in your mind. If you keep feeding people, if you keep feeding your mind with what people think about you, now this is what happens. People will grow in your mind. And the bigger people grow in your mind, the lesser you grow in yourself. So that people will outgrow you and you will emerge one day and you wouldn't even know who you are. Why? Because you have fed people. You have fed yourself with what people think about you. Stop feeding yourself these things. Because if you feed yourself with the ideas that people think about you, what happens is you would grow ignorant of whom you are. And you wouldn't even know how to be yourself because you have fed yourself this garbage for a very long time. This is very important that when I came to understand that I have been feeding myself with so much garbage, they resonated in my system for a very long time, and it was quite a hell of a job to starve them, because when you begin to starve these things, they would come knocking. They would want you to feed them, but you have to stay strong and say, no, you have eaten enough of me. I'm not going to feed you no more. I have some better things to feed. I want to be stronger, so I will feed the stronger part of me. I want to have confidence in life, so I would feed things that would make me confident. I have given you more chance to give your opinion over my life, and those opinions have governed my life. Now I don't feed you no more. I don't care what you think about me. I don't care how you perceive me to be. I want to feed my sense of sovereignty and my sense of individuality, and I want to be me. And I want to live myself now. Now you can starve all you want, but I'm not going to feed you no more. I want to feed myself now. I want to feed my ideas. I want to feed my future. I want to feed what I want to become. I want to feed my relationship. I want to feed my strength. I want to feed what would get me going in life. I'm not going to feed my laziness no more. I'm not going to feed my cynicism no more. I'm not going to feed anything that will limit my potential. Because if I stop feeding you, I would be strong enough to feed what would help me in life. So this is a basic life principle that I thought I might share with you today. And I find it so profound that if you feed anything, it will live, because anything, everything would survive if you feed it. And if you want to kill something, you just have to stop feeding it. If you want to kill your current situation, you just have to stop feeding it. If you want to kill your current lack of confidence, you just have to stop feeding it. If you want to kill your laziness, you have to stop feeding it. If you want to kill your miserable situation, you have to stop feeding it. Feed yourself with ideas that will help you grow. There is no middle ground between growth and death. You can't stay neutral in the game of life and death. It is either you are living or you are dying. There is no middle ground. It's up to you. What do you want to do? Do you want to live or you want to die? That's all up to you, my friend. So, this is what I have for you today, and I hope it helped you in any way. And if it does in any way, please hit the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel, and I would deeply appreciate it.